Conversaban sobre el sinsentido de que se considere apropiado que ciertos libros estén disponibles en bibliotecas para niños cuyas edades oscilan entre los 3 y 12 años. Fue entonces cuando una madre comentó que sí, que ella permitiría que su hijo menor leyera uno de esos libros desagradables, lo que desencadenó un fuerte debate, y lo verás en este video. En él, padres y educadores dialogan con un grupo de educadores que apoyan la inclusión de ciertos libros en las estanterías de las escuelas. YouTube no es tan amigable con este tipo de videos, por ende no los recomienda, así que te agradecería a fin de que llegue a más personas que le dé like, y sobre todo te invito a ver el video completo y a compartir tu opinión. ¿Estás a favor de mantener estos libros disponibles para los más jóvenes o crees que deberían estar restringidos? Me gustaría conocer tu perspectiva. Sin más preámbulos, comencemos.
We are in Florida, newly famous for the so-called "Don't Say Gay" bill. So we can get into this now.
That's
All right. So this is fun, yeah. So this so-called "Don't Say Gay" bill bans instruction.
But can we call it what its title was? It was the Parental Rights in Education.
So the Parental Rights in Education Act bans instruction in gender identity and sexual orientation in grades pre-K through 8, and then 9 through 12, I think. You can talk about it a little in high school or something like that. I thought that we'd start by looking at a piece of material that I think epitomizes what the people who support this ban are afraid of. And this is a book that has been part of the curriculum in Seattle public schools. It was recommended to school children in New York City public schools, and it's been recommended by the Human Rights Campaign for use in elementary school classrooms. So this isn't just like a random thing. This is an actual book that is part of curricula.
I Am Jazz.
This is I Am Jazz, an autobiographical picture book by Jazz Jennings, a transgender activist who began her transition when she was 5 years old.
I'm going to explain my objection, because we just had a school shooting in Georgia.
Thank you.
And the school shooter ostensibly attacked that school because he didn't feel trans rights were being respected. This is a serious topic.
It is.
What we're teaching our kids about themselves and about who they are. But it has gotten to the point now where we've had 2 school shootings over an ideology and an indoctrination of our kids into thinking there's something wrong with them.
They were born in the wrong body.
But who's making them feel that way?
Where children are being told in public school classrooms that they were born in
telling
the wrong
them.
body. Do you know that Jazz, a little boy, had his penis split open and inverted, sterilized, never have an orgasm, has to stick a dilator in to keep an open wound open? This is a child. When I was 12 years old, I didn't know that I wanted to be a mom. If you had said to me, when I got my period, I have yet to meet a young girl who loves going through puberty. I didn't know that I want to breastfeed my children. And I had to listen to Chloe Cole, a detransitioner, sit on a stage where she said, don't know if I will ever be able to have a baby. And if I have children, I won't be able to breastfeed. And what I say to you, Ben, is this. These gender ideologues are stealing a future from girls that they don't even know that they want
and
yet.
Boys.
These are children.
Boys, yeah.
But right now, I'll talk about ROGD and girls, and you're right, boys too.
This is how it's happening, actually, Ben, is they're coming into media centers and libraries like we're at.
That's right.
And they're bringing adults in to read this material, and these young children are believing what's read because it's in a book.
They also believe in Santa, just to be clear.
Before this book was read, did we have trans people in the
There's
world?
no such thing as a transgender
Before
child.
this book was read, did we have gay people?
Yes.
There's no such thing as a transgender child.
So in my mind, I do know
And
that
I think they're actually trans
I'm
people.
just curious
The majority of young
would
boys
it exist
and girls,
if we didn't
especially
read
There was
boys.
transsexual. They changed it to transgender.
I mean,
That's part of the whole ideology. No, they're different things.
Right. Okay, my point is...
We got to get to the
okay.
ideology behind this if we really want to discuss it.
Transgender ideology is extremely homophobic. The majority of boys who end up going through transition or pushing a transition, if left alone to go through puberty, would turn out to be gay.
Have you heard this before?
Never. What I have heard is that the suicide attempts and the suicide rate for boys who feel like they are,
and I wonder if they
do not have the
seen
support.
And heard, it would
I
be
know,
different.
and I understand transgender. I'm sorry, you are absolutely right. Transgender, where you actually transition. I don't know how comfortable I am with really agreeing with that. But when it comes to a
Can I
child who
explain
feels like they're
transgender?
something else and being able to kind of like wear a dress or wear heels or whatever it is,
But okay,
I'm
but
not going to
Iman,
like.
But this is what's interesting.
Like I
is
don't
that,
have the. I'm not even a part of that community for me to really have an opinion on it. To be really quite honest, but for the students who feel like they are.
Well, neither of us. We all have opinions.
They would rather die than be. You know what I mean? Because nobody is giving them a place to be seen or to be respected. That to me is a problem as well.
But
I
the
think
data shows
if we're going
now,
to care about all the
which is
students, then
why-
we need to care about all the students.
We don't need to be having conversations about surgeries and puberty blockers and whatever. First off, the percentage is very, very low, right? Very low. You're talking 1% maybe.
Skyrocketing.
Right?
You
And
have
so-
schools in California where they have.
I'm sorry, I was
8%,
right in the middle of
9%.
a sentence. Thank you. So I think the conversation with the place that school psychologists the role that they play, the role that the larger school family plays, the conversation should be much more centered on how do we support the child and the family as they navigate this very complicated landscape.
What is the message you think that a child who does not conform to gender stereotypes gets from this book?
So you have a child that's experiencing mental distress. First of all, it's being introduced now in kindergarten. These are children who really, and it is being mandated in some states that this is taught.
Actually, is that in your experience? Have you seen this being in kindergarten? Do kids talk about gender?
I think that I'll be really transparent. I think that if a child is already in a classroom that already has this mindset that this is who they are, then of course it's going to come up in conversation between kindergartners. Because the child is coming to school, we're in a public education system, we're going to have different kids that come to school. So
Well,
if
as
your
opposed
kid
to
is
like
in
it
the
being
classroom-
introduced as curriculum.
I mean, we are in Florida, man.
Yeah,
so,
that
so
doesn't
no,
happen.
absolutely not.
Right, but it will happen.
Definitely not. But by middle school, absolutely, because there's going to be kids there that are trans. I'm so sorry,
has
even
no
the
place
terminology.
in our schools and public education. Our kids aren't even learning how to read. And we're telling them they've been born in the wrong body. There are 2 sexes, 0 genders, and infinite personalities. Telling children there's something wrong with them because they like to play with different toys or like the color pink is abuse.
We cannot control how somebody views their body. That's not what we can control. What we can control is the policy that surrounds education and how we deliver it to our children.
And we're not
That's
talking
what
about,
we're here to
we're
talk
not talking about controlling how they feel about themselves or how they think.
That's
I
not
don't
what
know.
she's talking about, though.
But she just said that.
No.
She just said it.
She's not talking about controlling the feelings of students.
She said
She's
we cannot
talking
control
about-
the feeling.
We
We're
can't
not
control-
asking.
we can't-
We're not
we can
trying to
control
do
what we
that.
spend time on in the classroom and spending time on I Am Jazz when we only have one
I'm
third of
talking
American
about right
children-
here, sitting
when we
here
only
right
have
now.
one-
We have to move on to this book stuff. So, House Bill 1069, signed into law last year in Florida, among other things, establishes a process for parents to object to any school library book and requires the books be immediately reviewed or immediately removed while these objections are adjudicated. Now, Tiffany, because I know this is something that's been pushed by Moms for Liberty. Well, then clear this up. Do you think that Florida's law, or the law that I just described, which is Florida's law, is this a good model for the rest of the country?
I think that the biggest concern really has been in Florida and other places that there didn't seem to be a process for school as to how library books, were making their way into the library, how they were being reviewed. And so I sat on a school board for 4 years. Were there books that were in the library that weren't appropriate for public school while I was on the school board? Absolutely. I think that there were books that librarians, in some cases, were shocked to see what the content was in the library books. So I think that, you have curriculum that is adopted in every school district. Parents are involved in as part of that curriculum adoption process, and that parents should absolutely have the ability to look at what the books and the materials that are in the schools, and if they have concerns about them, to go to their local school board, their elected officials, and express their concerns.
Okay, so is this law which says that if a parent objects to a book, that the book is immediately removed while it is reviewed? And I mean, is that? Do you feel? Do you
I
stand
think
behind
there
this
has to
policy?
be a process that's in place in order for materials to be questioned and the school board to be able to take action on that. And I just want to be clear. The mission of Moms for Liberty is to unify, educate, and empower parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government. We're a parental rights organization. The book issue was something that we didn't start, but was actually brought to a lot of our moms and they were made aware of. And I do feel that parents felt they had a moral obligation to take action when they saw the graphic sexual content that was in these books.
Okay, so this bill has resulted in the removal of hundreds of books from library shelves. This includes books by Toni Morrison, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.
To be clear, the school boards are the ones that are making the decision about which books are removed.
No. This law says that if a parent objects to a book, it's
parent-
whisked off the
it's-
shelf.
it's-
But it's the school board is the one that makes the decision, and Ryan was a part.
Ultimately about
Yes.
like whether
Yeah.
we put the book back on the shelf.
Correct.
But,
Or take it away.
But
Or the superintendent.
I mean, parents are going to
sure.
ask. Here's the thing: parents. I mean, even on the school board, you spent 24 years. Parents are going to ask a lot of questions. Some of them are going to be, things that you want flagged that you're aware of. Some of the things that parents are going to bring up, you're going to say either maybe there's nothing I can do about that, or that, this is something that's a policy in our district, and we're going to continue doing it. But parents have the right to ask questions about anything that their children are being exposed to in schools, and local school boards are elected. That's why American public education is so beautiful in many ways, because across the world, parents don't have the type of representative government that we do in America. Local control is incredibly important.
Okay, but this law has resulted in the removal of books that I don't think any of us would call pornographic, books by Judy Blume, Jodi Picoult, Margaret Atwood. So my question is for everyone, is this law too broad?
I think it's very important to be honest about the fact that when we talk about funding and school library funding, it's minuscule. And that's something that I know that Ryan has spoken about publicly, about the fact that we should be investing in our libraries in our schools, and we should be investing in literacy specialists to help our children to identify good books that are going to help to enhance their learning. We have standards in American public education. In Florida, we have the best standards. It's a roadmap that shows very clearly what a child should be learning in any given year. And then there's curriculum that's selected in the school that matches to those standards. And so the idea that every book that has ever been written should be in a public school library is just ridiculous. Jodi Picoult, as you spoke about, well, that's a book that you can buy in the grocery store while you're checking out your groceries. Should a book that you buy at the grocery store that's a female romance novel should taxpayer money be spent on that book and put on a library shelf? I think it's a good debate to have.
I don't see anything wrong with parents reviewing the materials that are part of the curriculum.
But it's also what parents.
Keep going.
So it's very selective. It's very selective. I'll give you an example. We had a situation in our district about one particular book, All Boys Aren't Blue. And it's a story about a young African-American boy, man.
He's a boy in the book.
Okay, keep going.
He's a minor.
I just said that.
Oh, okay.
A young boy, it's kind of his coming of age, right? He loses his virginity when he's in college, later in life. He was molested by his cousin when he was younger, I think 12 or something like that.
He was by an adult family member.
Okay,
Tiffany,
and this is something.
and this happens.
So keep going.
And so I read the book from cover to cover because we had a school board member that actually filed criminal charges against our superintendent and wanted the superintendent arrested. Ridiculous, right? When I say it's up to certain parents, if I am an African-American mother of a young gay man, I don't have a problem with him reading this book.
Oh my gosh.
Excuse me, molestation happens.
We should do a lot better than throw a library book on the shelf.
And let me tell you something.
Is this not the point
Judy Blume's Forever is raunchier than that book.
Well, Judy Blume's been pulled from shelves
I know, right? And we're of that. Some of us are of that generation of Judy Blume. But Forever was a pretty naughty book.
I mean, these are books that describe the reality of teenage sexuality, and that is a thing that makes some parents very uncomfortable.
And I'm just saying that if parents want to opt out, right, Tiffany, if you don't want your child to read that book, then we have a process in Florida where the parents can opt out of that book.
Does the parent have to name the books that are not?
Yes.
So
but now, if I'm a parent and I want my child to read that book, I should have a right to let my child read that book.
The way out of this that sort of satisfies people feel very passionately about this on both sides. Could you not have a system where a parent can say, "Hey, every book that my kid checks out of the library, it has to have my approval"?
Why don't
Wouldn't that be sort of the fastest way to sort of resolve this problem and move on?
It's more or less like that.
Would you like me to? Can I answer?
Yeah.
Maybe we could just take all of the books that have graphic sexual content. And I'm going to push back on you for a moment because you said this is normal. Children having coming of age sexual experiences. It's not normal.
He didn't lose his virginity until he was in college.
I'm sorry. It being by your adult family member is losing your virginity.
Okay.
Being by your adult family member is not normal childhood sexual
I'm
experience.
sorry,
And
who
I think
said
it's
it
insulting.
was?
And I think it's insulting to say that any black parent with a gay child would be okay with their child reading that book.
You're being
That's
absolutely ridiculous, and you're putting words in my mouth. That is not what I said.
So
I think your point was that a book that
Don't
speaks to a certain...
choose.
why don't we
Right.
put all of the books with graphic sexual content that are in the libraries behind like a curtain, like a special area? And then if parents want their children to be exposed to graphic sexual content,
Porno
they can
site.
go into the raunchy naughty room, as she shared.
I
and
guarantee
listen
you,
to it.
I know you're being
Is that a
facetious.
good idea?
Well, I know
had
you're
the
being
same
facetious
visual.
here, but I guarantee you that if you did something like that,
shows
the
that
kids
we are,
would
like,
all
very
flock to
That,
the
right,
naughty
they'd all
section.
flock to it.
And also, this is
half
what
of
has
the books the
happened,
kids
hasn't-
never even knew about.
I mean,
now you
only
have-
a third of children in American
wait, hold
public
on.
schools can read on grade level. They can't even read.
Yeah, what's the problem, Tiffany? They can't read them anyway.
The problem is that we're spending a lot of time talking about these very controversial, hot-button issues, but
Well,
all we
they're
want to
culture
do,
wars.
we want the kids
So if we
to
would just
learn.
shut up
I
and be
want the-
okay with it,
no,
then the
that's
kids
not
would
what I'm
learn to
saying.
read.
Is that
You have
we'd
a-
rather
But
spend
what-
more
but what you-
time
but
on
I don't know
the
that-
math and the reading and
You
the,
have a-
We're the
problem
disruptors
is-
for calling out
problem
the
is-
graphic sexual content.
Here's
We're the
the
problems.
problem. It's not about graphic.
La elección de libros para escuelas es un tema que genera un amplio debate, y hay argumentos sólidos sobre por qué los padres deben involucrarse en este proceso y tener voz en las decisiones. Los padres son los principales educadores de sus hijos y conocen mejor sus valores y creencias. Al participar en la selección de libros, pueden asegurarse de que el contenido refleje lo que consideran apropiado y beneficioso para el desarrollo real de sus hijos. Esto implica elegir libros que fomenten valores universales y habilidades esenciales, en lugar de aquellos que promuevan agendas políticas o ideológicas específicas. Los padres deberían optar por libros que estén basados en hechos y datos verificables, en lugar de aquellos que presenten información sesgada o ideológica. Esto es esencial para que los niños desarrollen una comprensión sólida del mundo que los rodea. Elegir libros que fomenten la curiosidad intelectual y el aprendizaje basado en la evidencia puede ayudar a los niños a desarrollar habilidades de investigación y análisis que son fundamentales para su éxito académico. Al seleccionar libros que abordan temas contemporáneos, científicos o históricos, los niños se sienten conectados con el mundo real. Esto despierta su interés en aprender más sobre esas áreas y fomenta un deseo natural de investigar. Al elegir libros que incluyen hechos y evidencias, los niños son alentados a evaluar la credibilidad de la información. Esta habilidad de discernimiento es vital en un mundo lleno de información, ayudándoles a identificar fuentes confiables y a distinguir entre hechos y opiniones. La literatura que los niños leen puede tener un impacto significativo en su desarrollo emocional y social. Los padres pueden querer asegurarse de que los libros elegidos fomenten la empatía, la responsabilidad y el respeto. Los padres tienen el derecho de expresar sus opiniones y preocupaciones sobre el material educativo que se presenta a sus hijos. Al involucrarse en la selección de libros, pueden ejercer este derecho y asegurarse de que se escuchen sus voces. ¿Qué harías si como padre se te retira ese derecho? Comenta. Los padres pueden sentirse responsables de proteger a sus hijos de contenido que consideren inapropiado o dañino. Su participación en la elección de libros les permite ejercer ese papel de protección. Los padres suelen evaluar la madurez emocional y cognitiva de sus hijos al determinar qué contenido es adecuado. Un libro que puede ser apropiado para un adolescente podría no serlo para un niño más pequeño. Los libros son herramientas poderosas en la formación de valores y creencias. Los padres quieren asegurarse de que el material literario que sus hijos consumen esté alineado con las enseñanzas y principios que consideran importantes. Al involucrarse en la selección de libros, los padres pueden establecer límites claros sobre lo que consideran aceptable para sus hijos. Esto ayuda a enseñarles sobre la responsabilidad en la elección de lo que consumen, tanto en la literatura como en otros medios. ¿Y tú, qué opinas? Déjamelo saber en los comentarios y aquí culmina este video. Si te gustó puedes darle like, comenta el video y compártelo. Asimismo, tengo más videos similares que te gustarán muchísimo, así que suscríbete a mi canal. Gracias, hasta luego.